My training then wasn't for nothing. It actually was there to set me up for something much greater that I would have had no idea about. A lot of us can think like we've wasted our time. I should have left sooner, but everything really does happen in divine timing.
There's a lot of short-sightedness in that approach to business, which I know a lot of businesses, maybe even countries, they're just programmed to lead people that way, manage people that way, and causing all of this subsequent burnout and distrust in the workplace.
But the reality is that was a genuine, in a way, a positive fight or flight response, a stress response where there was clear messaging that was important.
To be traumatized and re-traumatized and sent into fight or flight in a very life or death way that has nothing to do with accolades in a business place, that's... Tiffany Carter, it is so amazing to have you on Becoming You. Thank you so much for participating in my podcast today.
I'm excited to be here, and I am thrilled to be supporting your audience in any way. I think especially right now, people need a giant dose of realistic, concrete, hope with true proof around it, and I think the timing of this is perfect.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And thank you for starting us off so strongly and wording that so well. I know your history a little bit. We met in a women's retreat in Tulum, which was amazing. And I realized that you started your career in corporate and now you're in business for yourself. So a lot of your story, I think, will relate and resonate to a lot of folks in my audience, especially on LinkedIn in the professional space who may have experienced some of what you went through and maybe going through it themselves right now. So yeah, the timing, like you said, is perfect. And I couldn't be happier that you're here. So if you can give us a little bit of background on your life story. I know you are very popular on many social platforms, but my network may or may not have been familiar with you prior to this episode. So I'll give you a chance to kind of speak to your life journey and this becoming journey that you're going to share with us today.
I started like most people, because most of us were taught that you want to be successful and be responsible, you need to follow the path of going to college, getting a corporate job, climbing the corporate ladder. And I was very excited to do so because I was taught that that was the thing to do. And I started out as a TV newscaster. I had wanted to be a journalist since I was 13 years old, and I wanted to be a truth teller. I was not aware that that's really not how the news business works, but I digress.
Right.
So I started my career as a TV newscaster for NBC. I was one of the youngest people hired. I was hired technically before I graduated college. And I went to be an anchor and did all of that stuff. But what I thought it was going to be was not what it really was. And I went to an amazing college and I did internships even. And what we think a particular job, or even you go into management or upper management, what we make it out to be in our mind, even maybe kind of fantasize about it, or what they want us to believe it is. You don't know until you're in it, like a relationship. There's the honeymoon phase, right? And then that wears off. And I was like, wow. And it was just such a stressful, cutthroat environment. I loved interviewing people and telling stories, but it was ultimately too much for my nervous system, but kind of leaping forward and then I'll leap back. Interesting, right? That I make my money and I help millions of people as a podcaster today. There weren't podcasts when I was on TV, when I was doing that, but my training then wasn't for nothing. It actually was there to set me up for something much greater many years down the road that I would have had no idea about. And I think it's important to share that because a lot of us can think we've wasted our time. Oh, I wasted so many times at that company, in that job. I should have left sooner. But everything really does happen in divine timing. When I look back at my corporate career, when I left the TV business, I got into the pharmaceutical industry because I had so many friends. They were driving corporate cars. They had a corporate credit card. They were going out to dinner. I was like, okay. I was like, this looks like the vibe. It looks so much easier. That looked very glamorous because that was also, how all of that was painted. And I had an interview for like 50 companies before someone hired me. And one thing about me is like, I'm relentless in the pursuit of something that I want. And it's a good trait. It also, drives myself crazy sometimes. But what ended up happening is I ended up getting hired by the exact right company for me. So all of those no's that I got ultimately led me to, and I don't mind shouting out this company because I still feel this way to this day, ultimately led me to working for Merck Pharmaceuticals, which is, they call it Mother Merck, which was around, God knows, like one of the longest running pharma companies, but their training program and how much money they invest in their people. I mean, that education they gave me to on this day, this would be worth $400,000. I
Wow.
didn't fully realize it at the time because you never realize what a company is like investing in you in the moment you're like, oh, I have to go do this thing. But ultimately, like all the trainings that I had and all the exposure I had, like set me up for an incredible career. So I climbed that ladder. I was a drug rep, and then I was a national trainer, and then I was a manager, and then I was a national sales director. But at a certain point, and I know a lot of people can relate to this, I know you can too, I kept hitting a glass ceiling. And in that industry, it's still very like white old men, dominated. Some industries are not as much like that, but this industry is even still like that to this day. And I kept hitting it and I kept hitting it. And I was like, at some point, it didn't feel good anymore. It just seemed silly to me. And I had one of a very prestigious dermatologist, because that was the specialty that I was in, who became a friend, nurturing these relationships that we need to do in the sales world. And we were out to lunch and he just looked at me and I got passed up for that promotion again. And then I like, of course, vented about who got it. And I was like, that's crazy. My numbers are better. This and this and this is better. And I go, the glass ceiling's real. Like I kind of wanted to believe it wasn't. And it's actually a thing. And he looked at me and he goes, why don't you actually like do this as a business and be able to collect all the money yourself instead of making pennies on the dollar? And I'm like, okay. I was like, well, who would pay me to do this? Like, what would they pay me to do? I don't get it. And he's like, well, you already help. In this case, I was one of the added value things I was doing and why I became so successful is for these various like medical groups and doctors' offices. I was helping them with their marketing in order to bring in more qualified patients because the more successful they were, the more successful I was, and the more valuable I was to them. I wasn't paid extra to do this. I was paid salary,
Right.
right? Like, and
Mhm.
it was so appreciated. And he's like, well, people would pay you to do that. And I go, you think so? I've been doing it for free for them for so long. And you want me to go and be like, hey, you have to pay me for it. And he's like, you don't have to do it. He's like, but I think you should. He goes, it's worth a shot, like just seeing what happens. I was terrified. Now, I wasn't terrified selling stuff for the whatever company I worked for. That didn't feel vulnerable to me.
Exactly. And I've thought about that myself too, how much self confidence and self esteem you have to go into business for yourself. Whereas when you're representing another brand, whether the customer takes it or leaves it, it's not a reflection on you. So you tend to not take it personally in those instances. But when you're venturing out for yourself, it's so easy to think, well, now I have to market myself, I have to sell myself, and I have to prove why people should be putting their dollars with me. And so I can totally see how that would feel very vulnerable and sticky for you in that moment.
Oh, and it's the vulnerability of once you then decide you really want it, then it's like, well, what if it doesn't work? And so every no can represent like, this isn't, your dream's not possible. This thing you want so bad isn't possible. And the weight is so heavy. And that's why I tell everyone 85% of it truly is a mental game and 15% is strategy. And I teach people that to this day. And it is still a mental game for me every single day, like 17 years later. So when I went and I asked, of course, like the people who kind of felt safest to ask, who I knew weren't going to be mean.
Yeah.
And when I asked, the response was, we were wondering when you were going to ask us to start paying you.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
And I was like shook by this.
Right.
And I went, of course, people aren't going to be like, hey, let me give you money for this.
Well,
Right?
that was my first thought. I'm like, wait a second. So they've been biding their time, just taking kind of advantage of you, knowing that you deserve to get paid, but they weren't willing to kind of pay you what you're worth until you ask.
We have to not like demand it in a nasty way, but we've got to step into that.
Right.
And my old self, and still like it can show up from time to time now, is I can be an overgiver. Right. And so it was like, I definitely overgave in my corporate career. I was the person who always volunteered. And because I didn't have kids and I still don't have kids, and I'm kind of unconventional in that way. Like I wasn't married. I was then I didn't have to volunteer. Tiffany has to go to this conference. Let's have Tiffany do it. Tiffany can go out until 11 o'clock at night with the client. Tiffany, and I did all of that because what is taught is that you do that. There's the carrot. You're going to get the promotion. You're going to climb the ladder. You're going to get the thing. And let me tell you, that is not a guarantee.
No, it's not.
The only thing we can guarantee is if we bet on ourselves and take it into our hands. I was putting it in someone else's hands to deem me worthy of getting the next promotion, or how much of like a bonus I get, which isn't guaranteed either. And so when I started asking and they were saying yes, I'm very conservative. I don't teach people like just quit your job unless it's like very toxic and damaging you. I have bills to pay. Like I don't have someone to fall back on or a house to go of a family member to go move back into. Like I had a mortgage, I was making a 6-figure salary. Like I didn't want to lose my lifestyle. So I side hustled that for 6 months before I quit. I call it like my straddling method, because in integrity, I still had to perform my current job, right? It's not like I just pulled back. I stopped overgiving. And the part I was overgiving, I gave to myself. And then once I matched closely, like my base salary, that is when I gave my 2-week notice. And I never looked back. But let me tell you something. It wasn't cute after I left. It wasn't like the sky parted and everything.
No. And I even want to take a pause for just that effort that you put in for yourself to make that happen. When I think back on the story you just shared early in your career, you realized being a truth teller and seeking out the truth through questions may not be the advantageous path forward in corporate or in journalism. So you were already kind of filtering yourself to some extent. And then in corporate America, learning to play this carrot versus stick game, that's a mental game in and of itself. And now being in business for yourself, you describe that it's, 85% mental and 15% strategy. All of these steps, each step of the way in your career have been mental, but it's a different game along the way. So just the fact that you were able to kind of go through those motions, navigate that for yourself, and still be strategic in your final 6 months while showing up with integrity for your organization, which is super important. And I don't take that lightly at all, because there's many times where employers will assume the worst in an employee, thinking that your mind is not totally focused on your work and you're too distracted. And unfortunately, for single women with no kids, like the two of us, that tends to be all of the stuff that we fill our personal time with tends to be vilified because it's not the typical spouse, children, medical appointments. It's whatever else we want to do with our free time. But,
Travel,
right,
whatever
it's
else, passion,
travel.
side passion,
Yeah,
even
having a
posting on social
podcast.
media.
Right. All of these things. I've had feedback in the past. Katrina, we know you love life. Like, how about you show me you love your job? Despite being very good at my job and giving it 110%, because I had a life outside of work that wasn't revolving around a typical, acceptable lifestyle, it brought into question how focused I was or something like that. I mean, the perception is real and we have to manage it, unfortunately, especially, in different situations in life. So I give you a lot of credit for figuring that out and putting together some sort of blueprint that other people can follow too. I'm sure it's very helpful.
What I get a lot from the people I coach who are in corporate and they're wanting to leave, or they're just wanting to create like additional streams of income, leveraging their skills, passions, talents, intellectual property. They want a podcast, like you have, like I have. They want to make a course. They want to maybe do like retreats, which is fine. Like they want to do something else, whether it's full time or as like a side thing. They're terrified of their employer finding out, even though this is not taking away from them doing the job that they're hired for. Like, oh, but if they see me, post on Instagram, I could get fired. Well, you're not like working a poll. Like, what are you posting that would get you fired? But it's like what you talked about. It's like the impression. And it happened to me when, even though I was not working as an employee for anyone, when I started my second business, which is ProjectME with Tiffany Carter, the podcast and business coaching brand, I had all corporate clients because my agency I have is all pharma, medical, health clients. Like I turn the tables, right?
Yeah, I love
Like,
that.
so those people are rather conservative, okay, by nature. And I remember some people found out, like some brand directors and stuff found out that I had a podcast. And there was lots of chitter chatter about that. And there was cattiness about that. And I had to eventually address it and say, this is actually only going to help you. This only helps all of my clients. Like I'm helping the greater good. I'm doing great things for other people, other women, for the world. And this only looks good for you guys to be working with a company that finds that important. And then everyone shut up.
Yeah, sometimes it needs to be painted that clearly. But it's unfortunate too that there can't be a level of trust that, you get hired for a reason. Obviously, there's some validity in who you are as a person. And then, you try to do something for yourself that's further exemplifying maybe why they would have hired you or resembling your character and things like that. And that's all of a sudden kind of not even frowned upon. I would say a lot of people maybe are scared of it. They shy away from it because they're not familiar with it. So if you can create a good story around it and pitch it to them, then yeah, they'll get on board. But I'm just, I find it unfortunate that we have to have this second layer of connecting the dots sometimes. I just wish that people, could connect it themselves. I don't know. Maybe that's asking too much, but I just find it
I
funny.
just think that the system has been in place for so
Right.
long.
Yeah.
And those people who say something are also hearing it from a higher up or like an HR director, because I've had the privilege of running a really, a rather sizable company as an interim CEO. And I've seen the other side also as being a national sales director where you're meeting with HR and what is really said behind the scenes. And let me tell you, it's not equal opportunity. It's not. What is said behind the scenes is the concern of someone's age and if they're going to have kids, and you don't want to have too many people on a team with people who could potentially have kids. Like this kind of stuff is really talked about, and they are looking at social media. They are looking at things like that. So it's like that's the game you have to play in corporate. I played out that game. Like I reached the highest level I could get to.
Yeah.
and I was done. And now I'm in entrepreneurship, which is a new game.
I know. It sounds like you got disillusioned from the old game. The carrots that used to motivate you were no longer doing the job. So, what do you do now that you're in entrepreneurship? It's a new game. What's motivating you? What keeps you happy in that space? I mean, you said you've been doing this now for 17 years. So, obviously, something's working, which is amazing.
Well, it's the freedom for me. It's all
Mm,
about freedom.
yeah,
Because of the abusive childhood that I had, I value freedom. I do not like being trapped anywhere. If I feel trapped and suffocated in anything, I'm out. Hence, probably why I'm not married.
I mean, I get
It's like,
that. We're flight
I don't,
risk.
I want to feel,
Fine.
yeah, I want to feel free. And I don't even want to be trapped by like confined by what's appropriate or like I had to wear, the leg prison pantsuits and I could, I had to act a certain way. And I didn't even like that. That even got old after a while. So it's the freedom that motivates me. So it's not just like the money. The money's great, but money isn't at a certain point isn't enough of a motivator. It sounds like a very privileged thing for me to say, and I used to hear other people saying it who I would look up to as entrepreneurs, but it's actually true because at a certain point you have enough money to do like the things that you really want to do. It has to be deeper than that, and for me it's the freedom of I get to spend my time the way I want, my energy the way I want. I get to create things the way I want, say yes to what I want, no to what I want. And
Right.
I would never want that taken away from me.
Right. What I've noticed too is you're able to show up authentically as yourself across all different areas of your life. You're not turning a version of yourself on and turning it off and figuring out who you are outside of work. Work is life and life is work, and it's all blending together. So that's got to also help with any sort of pressure that your nervous system may have been feeling in the past when you're trying to, ebb and flow between what's acceptable, what's allowed, what are they coaching you, how are they coaching you to show up, and then how do you want to show up for yourself outside of work? Do you even have the energy at that point to show up in that way? I've heard from a lot of guests even on the show who've struggled with those sorts of things. So it sounds like maybe that could be another plus in this journey of freedom for you.
Yeah, I mean, when I created my first business, all I did though was repeat the golden handcuffs of being an employee into entrepreneurship because
Right.
I didn't know what I was doing. So I was working 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. I was burning myself out. And I would say all the time, "Oh my God, what did I do? Now I have a gap in my resume. I wish I could go back to corporate. It was so much easier because I didn't know how to operate without being in the system. I was in the system
Exactly.
my whole life.
I
I
know. And
didn't
it's
know
so
what to do. It's like a
prescriptive.
prisoner coming
Yeah.
out, like a lifer coming
Yeah.
out, and they like have anxiety and they don't do
Yeah.
well.
Right.
It's like I didn't know what to do. And I was like, and the only thing I thought I could control was like work harder because then that means you're safer and there's more security, but then that's not sustainable. And I wasn't this person like you're talking to today or people are listening to, where you meet me in real life, whether it's at the gym, on a retreat, at an airport, whatever. Literally, I'm the same exact person, like you said. That is not how I was when I first started. I still was masking because I was taught in corporate, especially as a female, you have to mask. You have to present a certain way. And I had proof that playing the game in that way did work to a certain extent, right? I did get promotions. I did make six figures. So I was doing that with my own business. And then I got really, really sick. My body shut down because it's not sustainable.
And
And I
there's a
just
lot of
won't do it anymore.
short-sightedness. Yeah, there's a lot of short-sightedness in that approach to business, which I know a lot of businesses, maybe even countries, they're just programmed to lead people that way, manage people that way. And causing all of this subsequent burnout and distrust in the workplace, and not knowing, like, the cutthroatness that comes from all of that, not knowing who you can trust, who you can rely on. A lot of that is very damaging to our nervous systems. And I know you shared too that you came from a home of abuse growing up. I don't exactly know what that entailed, but even that, the traumas that we experience early on in life have a ripple effect through our entire lives. So even when you're showing up at work and you're masking, you're hiding one aspect of you. Meanwhile, no one knows what else is going on underneath. And it's such a struggle, to try to figure out these balances. And I don't know if you have any feedback for how you've been able to become this newer version of yourself. Like, was it gradual? Was it intentional, accidental? How did you come about, being the person that we see and we hear today?
I mean, like most things in life, we have to hit a breaking point of extreme pain in something for us to create major change. When we're just a little bit uncomfortable, a lot of us can go a long time, managing that. So our body keeps the score. My body completely broke down. It stopped producing cortisol, which you need cortisol to sustain life, or you go into cardiac arrest. I was a disaster. I couldn't shower standing up. I couldn't go to the grocery store. I was forced in complete humility to revamp my entire operating system and how I was doing something. Because of my abusive childhood, I had such a high tolerance for pain and discomfort that I was able to run at that level of insanity. When I look back, I'm blown away by it. And I now see it in other people I see, right, and I pray for them, because I know they wouldn't be able to hear me if I said anything. People did say things to me like I was working out twice a day. I was on a plane every 4 days. Like, I was insane, and I was operating on pure adrenaline and maybe some substances in order to
The
keep
adrenaline is
going.
a strong substance, and it's true. It
Wow.
moves you through it. You numb the pain, you tune it out. In fact, you're not even conscious that it's there. But what's interesting is once you step off of that hamster wheel, so to speak, and you do find a way to regulate your nervous system, what I found is that not only do you consciously not want to get back in that lifestyle, you almost can't. Your body won't allow you to run at that rate anymore, because been there, done that, not interested.
I can't, but you're so smart. I love your questions. I can't, but I've struggled with, not anymore. I've put it to rest now, but for years, I would say, I wish the old Tiffany could come back. I wish I could operate like her, because she was so productive and got so much done, and she could keep going. I cannot access that same inner drugstore, that adrenaline, that cortisol, like where I could just grind and hustle and turn it on. It's gone. It doesn't exist. And I had a period where I was even like panicky that it didn't exist, because that was the thing that I believed was a major like secret sauce in my success, was being able to outwork everyone, outdo, overgive, da 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 da. Da.
All
And
the things.
it was all of it, and it was gone, and I was forced to learn a new way. It's almost like I felt like my body put me on like a permanent half a Xanax every day. Like I was that brought down. That's how it felt to my system. I was probably just being regulated, right?
I know, for the first time in your life, yeah. And it felt very weird, I'm sure. When you come
It
from
felt
a
like I
world
was
of
depressed
chaos.
or something.
Yeah, exactly. Like a normal, I'm putting it in quotes for anyone just listening and not watching, but a normal baseline feels, when you come from an environment of chaos, it feels very weird and it doesn't feel safe, and you've used the word safe too. And I know being in a safe environment is really important to regulate yourself, and to feel like you can trust what's happening around you, not be paranoid, whatever the case is. I mean, safe looks different for everyone, and we all perceive safety in different ways, but it's still very important. And what's interesting is in that high pressure, chaotic environment, you probably felt safe at that time. But once you made the mental decision and intentional choice to leave it, that no longer felt safe. And now your new safety looks different than how it once did. But that's why I think too, you can't just jump right back into it. You can't tap into that inner drugstore, as you said, of all these different chemicals that we have in our body to help us keep going, because that was in a place from fight or flight. That wasn't normal productivity, baseline harmony within your body.
Yeah, it's literally gone. Now, I can obviously get triggered. I have complex PTSD. So there are things that trigger me and I can go into fight or flight, but
Oh,
it's not a
sure.
normal operating thing. And I don't get off on it anymore.
Well,
I
that's the
used to get
thing.
a charge off of it. I
Yeah.
used to like being, like that kind of edgy and up and oh my, what about that masculine, like I used to literally, it was a drug. I was addicted to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And you can
now I
tell.
hate it. I don't want to feel it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but in the past, I'm sure you could have used it as a tool and actively tapped into it rather than simply now. And I'm saying simply not to dismiss it, but being triggered because of a CPTSD trauma response is very different than using those behaviors to excel in a workplace and climb a corporate ladder. Because in the one sense, it's self-serving, you're ambitious, you're getting rewarded for this, not only by your internal system, but externally, people are congratulating you along the way. To be traumatized and re-traumatized and sent into fight or flight in a very life or death way that has nothing to do with accolades in a business place, that's super different. And it's your body protecting you and keeping you truly safe. So I am grateful to hear that your nervous system is still operating the way it's intended to, because that's healthy. It may feel uncomfortable, but it's better to have those fight or flight, fawn, whatever response systems in place, because they are there for a reason. Even if sometimes we have to talk ourselves out of them because maybe they're overreacting, but they're coming from a place of keeping us safe.
That's such a good point, because I recently had an episode like that when I was in Mexico, and I was doing some self-judgment around that. Like, what is going on with you? Like, what is happening? But the reality is that was a genuine, in a way, a positive fight or flight response, a stress response, where there was clear medicine, that there was clear messaging in that, that was important. And when we're operating in that every day, I shouldn't say we and speak for everyone, but I can't tell the difference. You're always in that state when there's actual real danger or a real red flag about someone or something. I never caught that because everything was at this heightened state all the time. So now when there's things that happen and I'm more sensitive, if that makes sense. I really pick up on stuff very quickly, and I don't always like it. And I know you get it because you're also a highly sensitive person. And I don't always like what I see. Sometimes I wish I didn't see what I see, but once I see it, I can't unsee it. And I know it's there for my greatest good, but there's a lot of shit to see out there.
Too much sometimes, but yeah, you're spot on. And I'm highly attuned to it, just like you are. For better or for worse, this is part of who I am. And I was telling someone earlier today, but our personalities, they're molded in the first 2 years of life. So anything later in life that tries to change your personality, I mean, it's an uphill climb to try to do that anyway. So I think having grace for yourself and trusting that, you can trust yourself. I mean, none of us are perfect, of course, and we can, rationalize through different things. But I think judging ourselves and how we're reacting to something when it wasn't a conscious reaction, that's not even helpful in processing it or moving through it. So to hold the space to ask ourselves, okay, different parts of our body, our mind, whatever, what is it trying to tell me in this moment? And to listen for the answers. A lot of times I think even in my own life, I try to get answers externally from outside myself when I have all the answers within me. I don't need to ask anyone else. I don't need that external validation. I can sit with, the questions and just leave some silence and listen for the answers. And I think what happens often is people are afraid to sit in that silence, and they're afraid of what may be answered in the silence. And what I can say about that is if you do take the leap and risk sitting in the silence, you may be surprised at what answers come up, and they may not be as scary as you thought they were.
I so agree. And I was that person, which is why I became a workaholic and had a workout addiction, exercise addiction.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't want to be still because when you're still and you're quiet, the truth comes up. I also refused to journal. Any therapist that wanted me to journal was like, I'm not doing it because the truth also comes out. And
Yes.
once we know, once the toothpaste is out of the tube, you can't put it back in. And if someone is resisting being in the stillness, and I know someone needs to hear this today because I used to be someone who needed to hear this. You're resisting it. It's because you do know at some level there is a truth there. There is a move, a boundary. There is something that you need to do, some action you need to take that you're avoiding looking at, because once you really admit it, you're going to have to take action on that. And it's very life disrupting to take action. Like when I knew the game was up with corporate for me, there was a law of diminishing returns. It wasn't adding value into my life. It was actually taking life away from me. I did know it, but I didn't want to admit it, because if I admitted it, that means I'd have to leave this structure that did feel safe to me because it was just what I knew, and go do something wild and terrifying.
Right.
And the truth does always come out. That's why, like, when a lot of us take a shower or even go on like vacation, that's why we get like all these ideas and we start dreaming. And so I now make a point where I call it like brain resting time. And I have it in my schedule every day.
I love that.
No noise, no distractions, nothing. Even if I'm just like kind of staring off into space, or I'm watching the waves, or even if I'm just like looking at a candle flicker, and give myself that space and time. And it allows my kind of brain to just settle.
Sometimes you're right, like just focusing on the flickering of a candle or the waves on the shore, it's meditative enough to put our minds at kind of a quiet ease. And then on top of that, the ideas that come up, I mean, my knee jerk reaction is to then immediately write them down or put them in my phone. So, how do you manage that? I don't know how long these, what do you call them, brain resets or something?
It's like brain resting.
Brain resting. Okay. How long is a brain resting for you each day?
I mean, sometimes, because I have the luxury of them being longer, working for myself and, not having kids. So, I mean, they can last for several hours, or maybe I take a bath, and it's like 30 minutes. Um, what comes up, sometimes I do put it in my like notes app. Sometimes I do make a point of writing it down. Other times it's a clear answer of something I already kind of was mulling around about in my brain, that it doesn't even need to be written down. It's a knowing of what I need to do, or it's a confirmation of a sense I had about a person, place, or thing. It could be a client, it could be an employee, it could be a friend, where there was something that seemed a little red flaggy, maybe, or yellow flaggy. And then during that time, it was confirmed. I don't need to write that down. I just
Yeah.
know.
No, that's a great point. And it sounds like it's a gift to yourself too. Give yourself a chance to check in and really evaluate in these circumstances. Was I right? Is there anything I can do differently? What does the future hold for me? And that goes back again to this journey of becoming, checking in with yourself and figuring out, am I in alignment? Am I marching in the right direction? Am I walking confidently in the right direction? Whatever that looks like for you. And if not, what can I do today to kind of get back on track, and maybe shift something that I'm doing today so I can get where I want to get in the future. And I did want to, along those,
True.
I was going to say, along those lines, I know you have a lot of resources for folks, and you do an annual summit, which sounds really impressive. I hope to be able to join it this year and watch you in all your glory. But can you share kind of what does that process typically look like, and where can people go to learn more about how you can help them and attain these resources that you have available?
The number one resource is going to my podcast, Project Me with Tiffany Carter. It's on all the things. It's top 5 in 57 countries. And it's a lot of like money mindset, manifestation. But then there's also like practical, true strategy in there. If you have any desire of like building a business, growing a business, there's that stuff too. I mean, we're almost at like 700 episodes at this point. So I would say going there, following me on Instagram and TikTok at Project Me with Tiffany. So I give a lot of content for free. It's also what I teach, right? You serve before you sell, and the law of reciprocity and the law of attraction, right? Like what you give out of a generous, nature, you do get back. So all of my latest stuff that I have like offered, whether it's free or whether, it's something I'm, selling, you'll be able to get on between my podcast, Instagram, and TikTok. But like my whole thing is being able to teach people how to be able to build something for themselves. That doesn't mean I'm saying like you need to leave your corporate life. Like if you are loving it there, that's fine. But you being dependent on one stream of income is not going to get you wealth or freedom. It's just not. And so I'm an advocate, especially of having women take control of being financially self-empowered. Because let me tell you, I don't have to depend on any person, place, thing, job, or institution for money. And I want every woman to have that feeling. I mean, I want men to have that too. But when I see the power of a woman having that and being able to, leave a relationship, go to a different job, fire a client, live where she wants to live, travel where she wants to travel, eat the types of food that she wants to eat, there's no better feeling.
Yeah. That sounds like an amazing world to live in too. Yeah, I'm just like daydreaming about that now because it is really powerful when women are not financially or otherwise dependent on anyone else, and for so long in our history as a species, that has not been the case. And it's really empowered, I think, this current in the last couple generations, maybe, to live life according to themselves. They're able to follow their own intuition, stand on their own 2 feet, and not be forced, hopefully, into a situation that is not beneficial for them. Maybe in the past, we as women didn't always have that choice or that independence. And I'm hoping that the steps that we're taking today can help us collectively, continue to achieve that, and practice feminism in whatever way that looks like. Every woman can make the choice for herself in a perfect world. But what you described, financial independence, personal freedom, a side hustle, even if you love your 9 to 5, like all of that, it can look however you want it to. But it's just a matter of knowing that that's an option and that exists, and I like that you're bringing that to folks and giving them something to think about.
Because I think a lot of people, they know it exists, especially because of social media. They see people like me, they see influencers, you see people of all races and ages and genders, like doing it. But then we get in our head of, well, I don't even know where to start or what I would do or how to do it. Well, I take that away. Like I didn't know either. I had to learn myself, but because I've learned, now I can teach other people like, hey, I've done this. This is the way. Now don't go this way. This way sucks. I've
Right.
tried this way. Go this way. Like you have options in this way. You don't have to do it exactly how I did it, but I can help get you there faster and with less stress because I know the way and I've made so many mistakes and it really exists.
And I'm the type of person who really loves learning from other people's quote mistakes because I don't feel the need to have to go through the same paths just because someone else did. So if you've gone through all these paths and you're telling me A through N are no good, but anything after that is fine. Like I'm willing to take those shortcuts and learn that from you and just move forward, in a kind of proven way without getting off the rails or having to go learn it the hard way myself.
Yeah, I mean, I created what I wish I had. I mean, when I was like, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And that first 5 years in business was terrible. I wanted to quit all the time because I didn't have anyone kind of also normalizing some things for me, that because I, of course, made it that like something was wrong with me because that's my default mode, right? Or like, I can't do this. And if, in fact, it's actually normal. Sometimes we just need to know, like, we need proof that it's possible, which is what I hope I like did today here is like, no, this shit is real. Like this really exists, really available. Like I'm not just like saying something like pie in the sky, like, oh, everyone can do it, abundance, manifestation. Like, no, this is real. It is easier than ever to be able to monetize your wisdom, whatever your thing is, than ever. And now is the time to do it if you're interested in doing it. If
Yeah.
you're not, that's okay too.
Yeah. Yeah, no, so well said, so true. And people can choose for themselves, which is the beauty of it. But it's accessible if you want to find it. Tiffany, it's been so good having you on the show. Do you have any final thoughts? I don't want to cut you off, and I would love to hear, anything that you want to share with the audience before we wrap up today.
I would say what's coming to my mind is that if you have like a consistent tickling in your mind of wanting to do something that hasn't left you, it just like keeps coming up, like it's nagging you a little bit, just experiment and go for it because you're going to have years go by if you keep denying yourself that, and you're going to wish you had started. And you can always quit. You can always decide it's not for you. Look at it like an experiment, but at least go for it because that regular kind of nagging, that's happening for a reason. Not everyone has these desires and thoughts in place. They're there because you're supposed to kind of explore it and do something with that. So I just invite you to honor that noise that's coming
Yeah,
up for you.
yeah. And the time's going to pass anyway, right? So may as well spend it listening to the voices and following the nag.
Exactly. And there's many voices in my head.
Oh, yeah, relatable. Well, thank you again, Tiffany. You are amazing and such a delight to have on the show. Thank you for your vulnerability, your honesty, and walking us through a bit of your journey of becoming. It's been such a privilege and an honor to have you here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
You are my most important listener, and I can't thank you enough for spending your time with me. If this content resonates with you, then hit subscribe. Connect with me on LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube by following @ConnectorQueen. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you again on the next episode of Becoming You.